All right. So what can we do to critique postmodernism? Because it seems to be such a big thing. Well, one of the big things is we can start with their own view of truth. Postmodernists reject any claim to a truth that is universal, objective, or eternal. They insist that everyone's perspective is situated within a context that is particular, local, and historically contingent. But of course, the same critique applies to postmodernists' own claim.
Wow.
They too are situated within a particular historical context. After all, where did postmodernism come from? As we have seen, it's an offshoot of modern European culture. White European colonialism.
That's
here. Right. It just goes layers and layers. It stems from post-Hegelian continental philosophy, as Tony mentioned last time, with this notion that individuals are socially constituted by their communities and forms of life. So there's an objective truth that they say permeates through all culture.
Which their system doesn't allow for, because there is no objective truth, right? Each community has their own truth. Right. And truth is determined by intersubjective agreement, is what Richard Rorty says. Yeah. And so notice they're claiming that it's true that there is no truth.
Right.
There is no universal truth, right? Which is obviously a contradiction.
Yeah, contradiction internally.
It's self-referentially incoherent, we might say. And she'll get to how to evaluate these things, right?
Yeah, part 3.
Yeah.
Postmodernists often accuse Christians of being narrow and closed-minded, but postmodernism is itself confined with these particular strands of Western intellectual history. Thus, postmodernists are just restricted by their own historical horizons as more traditional people whom they tend to look down on. So, again, you have in the West, you have the ability for kind of the fourth wave, I guess, feminism to rise up and say women should be able to go into STEM's field. And, of course, I'm going into a social field, not a STEM's field, to tell other women to go in STEM's field. Well, they have just the privilege of being able to do that their counterparts in, let's say, like the Middle East do not have the ability to. And so it's all about where you're drawing your circles. And so to say that to be able to make the claims that they do is being narrow and closed-minded towards other ways of life that's being done. And again, what they're saying against one thing is to say that group that they're speaking against is doing something that is not correct, that is not right. And so there's a truth claim in and of itself, too.
Yeah, and so, and as she mentioned, you can apply what postmodernism is saying to its own self, right? They are situated within a particular historical context. And so it's them as a group have their ideas of the way things are. And so you can always say, okay, fine, that's the way your group believes or thinks or feels or whatever. Yeah, right.
That's not me.
So who cares about your group? Right?
Yeah.
I care about my group according to postmodernism. And so why even listen to what they say?
Right. You believe in postmodernism. I'm postmodernism prime. Therefore, I should be able to speak truth to your power. In short, the same reasoning that postmodern uses to debunk traditional concepts of truth applies to their own.
Yeah.
But example is Rorty, who argues on the basis of Darwinian evolution that there are no eternal truths, that all our ideas are a product of time and chance, but his conclusions rest on the assumption that Darwin evolution is true, is precisely the sense that he denies that anything can be true.
You cannot say that there are no eternal truths, without, committing rational suicide by saying it, right? There's no, that's a claim to be an eternal truth, right? So, yeah.
So the only way it is possible to know eternal truth, of course, is if God has communicated that to the human race, given his own transcendent perspective. That's exactly the earth-shaking claim that Christianity makes. The Scripture is communication from God, giving us information about himself, the cosmos, and history, and it also puts a perspective which all people, all tongues, all tribes, all men, all types of men, all types of people that aren't men, all former sinners who were such were some of you, made into a new creation and made sons and daughters of God. All those types of people can come under a overarching, consistent form of truth with a capital T. Only if God has communicated the infinite reaching down to the finite is it possible to break free, no longer trapped in our individual minds as Enlightenment thinkers were, or trapped in a communal mind as postmodernist thinkers are. A biblical apologetic strategy will equip you to help liberate those who have been taken captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition. It will teach you how to unmask the temporal idols, and that's what she's attempting to do here. So, yes, does postmodernism offer us a good sense that there are differences within different social groups?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can draw your circles around that. The inner city youth of Chicago has a different perspective than the inner city youth of New York or the inner city youth of Kalamazoo.
Right.
And there could be shared interest between those two. And so one of those things, looking at the similarities is good, looking at the differences is also good. But is there overarching truth that can that all humanity can kind of come under and say this is the case?
Right.
Unfortunately, that's only possible, or fortunately, that's only possible, depending on who you are in this situation, that Christianity offers the most transcendent view of truth.
Right. Good.